Joining us right now via Zoom chat is Alexander Schugguel from the Boniface Institute. Over the weekend, there were massive rallies all over the world, really. Australia and New York and Canada and many places in Europe. I mean, there was violence that was being reported, actually, as a result to police clashes between the protesters. It was pretty crazy. But in Austria, they started to talk last week about locking down the unvaccinated. Well, that seems to have escalated, and we've invited Alexander Schugguel to be on with us to tell us what is the story. Good morning to you, Alex. Thank you for your time today.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation.
Praise be to God. So what is the latest going on in Austria?
Well, the latest, that's a very big question, as everything changes actually every day. So 2 weeks ago, people who were not vaccinated, were locked out of normal societies. We were not allowed to go into a restaurant anymore, not allowed to do normal shopping and things like this. Since now 8 days, there was a lockdown only for the unvaccinated in general, so we were not allowed to go out on the streets, just for basic things like doing a grocery shopping. That was still allowed, but nothing next to this. And since this week, we now have a lockdown. Since today, we have a lockdown for every Austrian. On Friday, the government not only said that there will be a lockdown for every Austrian from Monday, but they also said they will introduce a vaccine mandate on the 1st of February. This vaccine mandate will look like, we don't know how it will look like from a legal point of view, but we know that if you do not get yourself vaccinated, you can be charged with 3,600 euros. That's more than double of the average net income of an Austrian worker or employee. So it's really a huge amount of money. And this fine you can be fined more than once. So you can be fined also 3 times or 4 times or 5 times. And if you don't pay it, you have to go to prison for a month. Yeah, so that's what happened. And obviously there were huge demonstrations against this, the biggest I've ever seen in Austria, and it was really amazing to be there. So yes, that's what happened in the last 2 weeks.
Incredible. Now, there are reports that the cases are on the rise in Austria and that the emergency rooms are filling up and they are very concerned about capacity. Is that the case? Do you see that on the ground there?
Well, the capacity question is complete nonsense. If you look at the official statistics, even, you can see that the capacity for the emergency bedrooms as beds are still in a good area, so that's not a problem at all. Yes, the numbers are the incidents. In Europe we now have the 7-day incidences where you see how many people test positive. And then you say, well, so many people out of 100,000 test positive, and that's the incidence. The incidence right now is huge. It's about 1,000 right now in average, but that's not really a huge miracle. First of all, we have forced testing. So if you want to go to work as an unvaccinated, you have to test yourself actually every day. And obviously you will have tons of people who get test positive. And so whenever you hear someone telling you, yeah, well, the unvaccinated have way more positive tests than the vaccinated. Yeah, that's true in absolute numbers, because the unvaccinated have to go testing, the vaccinated do not have to go testing. Very easy answer. What we do see is, yes, we see an increase in corona cases exactly the same way we saw it last year. If you look at the statistics, and I looked at Statistic Austria, it's the official governmental statistic portal, yesterday night, so a few hours before our interview, and the numbers are kind of equal, even a little bit higher this year than last year, of deaths in general and also of corona, which for me is a huge proof for one very important point. The vaccine is not a game changer at all. We can see it, we can prove it in every other European country. Look at Gibraltar. Well, it's a small country, only 35,000 inhabitants, but it has a 100% vaccination rate and a huge amount of corona cases right now. Look at Ireland. They have a 90% vaccination rate among adults and have nearly the same numbers as we have with our 66% vaccination rate right now. Or look at Sweden. They have 67% vaccination rate, but do not have any cases at all right now. The incidence is so low lower than every other European country, which I think is connected to them never locking down, and therefore maintaining a normal life, and therefore also maintaining a normal immune reaction to what's happening. So that's the case right now. I cannot say that what the government publish is based on facts, and it's definitely not based on our statistics.
Rudy?
Mr. Schugguel, I have a question. There's obviously power in numbers. Do you think that there's enough of a movement here in Austria for people to affect any sort of change in this sort of new law that is coming into play?
Well, first, let me talk about the numbers, and then let me tell you why this is actually the case, and why, let's say, it could be the case. 100,000 people on a Viennese demonstration, and more than 100,000 people in my eyes, is extraordinary. You can't imagine it. Our country is so small. We have not even 9 million inhabitants. If more than, let's say, 500 people do a protest in Vienna, it's already considered a big demonstration. This swing was one of the biggest things I've ever seen in Austria.
Wow.
So obviously there is some power in it. Second of all, there are lots of groups which find themselves right now having the same profession. For example, there's a Telegram group for people who work in the health sector. And this Telegram group was founded not even a week ago, and it has already 16,000 members. And all of them, let's say the majority of them, is ready to do a strike, for example. Obviously, except elderly people homes, disabled homes, and emergency rooms. But they want to do a strike.
Hold that thought, Alexander. There's so many reports out this morning. I'm looking at Epic Times right now. One of the things that gets me is, 66% of Austrians have been vaccinated. 8.9 million people we're talking about here. I live in a city that almost has that many by itself, let alone our whole country. And, things even out. After the Delta variant came through and swept through, things even out. And yet we're seeing what I would say are overreactions, dystopian reactions to these types of things. Is the problem worse than the cure? Alexander Schugguel, good morning to you. What do you say?
Yes, the problem is not worse than the cure, obviously, because the problem they make up is the corona so-called pandemic, which, let's not talk too much about the term pandemic, but let's look at the numbers, because as I think numbers are way more powerful than ideologies. And the numbers just show us that, yes, there is something happening, and the corona is a thing. People can have quite an ugly time with it. Most of the people do not. The survival rate is more than 99%. So it's not really what we would consider a pandemic in the old-fashioned way. The question is, do the lockdowns, does the vaccine bring a change? So does it really make things better? And we did a research on this with a wonderful data analysis. And it's on our homepage. You can see it later, and you can read it later. You will see, no, they don't. The numbers this year are exactly the same like last year, exactly the same in almost every country where we have any numbers. In quite the opposite happens right now. The number of deaths which are not related to corona even increases right now. So we might even see bigger problems coming connected to the vaccine in the future as well. We don't know yet. There's hardly any study on this. So what we have here is a problem which we can call corona, and let's not focus too much on it first. Let's focus first on the solution the government wants to provide. The solution did not work at all since 1.5 years. We know it. We see the numbers, we see the cases, everything. It does not work. We have exactly the same numbers in Austria right now like last year. Last year we had 0 vaccinated people. This year we have already 3 times vaccinated people. So that's my answer to this. The question is rather, what do they want to achieve, the government and all the other governments trying to follow our line right now? What do they want to achieve with this? Well, I know that what people always like to achieve is they want to increase their own power. And I have to say that everything connected to this whole corona pandemic measures the government implements is unfortunately always connecting to giving away our duties, our rights, our freedom, not only for the time of the pandemic, but also for the time afterwards to the government or to supranational organizations. Look, for example, at the green passport in Austria. Every European country as a member of the European Union has now this green passport. The green passport is the vaccination passport. You will know the term, I think. The green passport is connected to your your main data, so to your passport data, which is, following old Austrian law, illegal. In Austria, health data is something considered very private data and personal data, and I, as a citizen, can decide to whom I hand it. This time, I couldn't decide it. So right now, the Austrian state knows whether I'm vaccinated or not, and started to send out letters to everyone unvaccinated, telling them you have to get yourself vaccinated, which is completely against every privacy and whatever law we had previously. So that's the first step. So the question is, what is this green passport, for example? And then if you do a little research and you just go to the official homepage of the European Commission, you will find out that the green passport is part of a bigger program called the digital identity. The digital identity is an idea to get whatever data you have, your bank account details, your travel data, obviously where you live, your health data and so on, connected in one account, and this account and the data is owned by the European Union and can be seen by the European Union itself and by the member states and by certain third parties who are allowed to see it. So that's actually what we're heading for. We're heading for a real dystopian world. You can't imagine this. Just imagine that someone up there, I don't want to say up there, I know where they are, someone in the government, someone in the European Union knows exactly where you are, what you spend your money on, what you eat, when you eat, what your health issues are, or if you're in debt or if you're not in debt, if you're rich or if you're poor, they know everything. And just imagine what this means, what power this means to the people who are in possession of this knowledge. It's huge. And yes, compare this to the last century. Just imagine, let's say Stalin, Joseph Stalin, in the communist time. Just imagine him having this information.
Right.
Do you think there would still be a resistance? Yeah, obviously. I'm not so. In Austria, we have quite hard laws not to talk about this, but obviously, yeah, that's quite obvious. So you will see that this is in the hands of people who are, let's say, who have no. Who are not 100% on the good side is already a problem. But now we talk about politicians which introduce abortion, euthanasia, homosexual marriage, mass migrations, destruction of the Christian identity of our Catholic heritage, for example, in Austria, and so on. And those people have all this essential data about us without my consent. That's something where I really resist. And I tell you something, it sounds strange, but most of the Austrian people who went to the demonstration on Saturday, they understand this. They know it. We have tons of little private networks in Austria, old Catholic networks, conservative networks, liberal networks, right-wing networks, left-wing networks even. Kind of the hippie movement, for example, very interestingly, is also very much against the vaccine. So you see that many people try to talk about this topic and find out what is behind them. And then I have to say, everyone understands why resistance is not only necessary, but actually a duty for everyone who is able to resist.
Wow, Alexander Schugguel is our guest. He is with the Boniface Institute. By the way, I've linked to it in our video feeds today. You can find it in the comments section there. But the website is boniface-institute.com. That's boniface-institute.com. We have about 4 or 5 minutes left with you, Alexander Schugguel. And okay, so let's talk about the numbers again as far as the crowds. Massive. You said it was the biggest you'd ever seen. But here's the question in my mind. So we have these big, huge rallies all over the world. That's all well and good, but will anything come of that? Is the government going to just ignore these, get past these rallies and move on, and they're going to do what they're going to do, and the people's opinion of that doesn't really matter? Or do you actually see a case where these rallies will translate into actual action on behalf of the people?
Well, to give you a little overview, it was only this weekend, the protests were going on in Sweden, in Norway, in Finland, in Australia, huge protests in Australia, by the way, in the Netherlands, in Croatia, also huge protests in Croatia, in Austria, in Germany, in Great Britain, in Italy, in Rome, at the Circus Maximus, so the big circus in Rome, very famous, everything crowded, 10,000s of people, in Georgia, in Lithuania, New Zealand, Canada, Hungary, Belgium, USA, in the United States. I saw quite some protests actually going on. In Switzerland and in France, and so on. And so obviously it's huge. Will anything come out of this? I think yes. The question is just, is what will come out of this able to still to create enough structure in order to also be a political power in our system, in the systems we have right now? Or are these rather networks which will be the networks we will rely on and we will need in the times ahead of us, which could be actually even worse than now, if you see what's planned. I think the second is definitely the case. Those are people we can trust more than others, because right now they are willing to show their face out in public, knowing that what they do will be illegal in 2 months. It's really good. It's a very good baseline, you know. And the question is what the movement will develop into. If it will be a constructive power, or rather only a uniting power, which is also very good, or if it will be chaotic in a few months and that's it. I hope for the second one at least, and I hope that even more could come out.
What about the church in Austria? How is the church handling this? It's been quite a scandal for many people of the faithful across the world. I mean, His Holiness has implemented vax mandates in Vatican City, signaling that he is completely okay with this. What about the church in Austria?
Well, the church in Austria is a difficult situation right now. We are allowed to go to Mass without major restrictions. We have to wear masks, which I do not do, and which I also think people should not do and should stop doing. But that's it. You do not have to be vaccinated. But right today, I got the news from Berlin that in Berlin from now on, you're only allowed to go to Mass if you're vaccinated or recovered. And there will be one Mass a day for the rest.
Wow.
So there's a separated Mass for us. And the the good people, the ones who follow the commands by the state, they go to the better Mass, you know? And that's something we will definitely see in other countries as well. I hope not in Austria. Right now in Austria, I do not think that this is happening. But what is happening is that next to Holy Mass and to adoration and confession, and a few things that are happening within the church's building itself, ecclesiastical, so churchly events are no longer possible. They were already also separated into unvaccinated and vaccinated, and you have those ugly rules implemented there. And I know personally many priests who are not vaccinated are not allowed to join their own parish's events anymore.
Wow. We are living in very interesting times. We're almost about out of time. Just about a minute on the clock. Do you see an underground church movement building across the world?
Not only building, but it's since the first lockdown, it's already there. In the first lockdown, I thought that my little community and our Holy Mass we organized underground with more than 100 people was amazing, and we were, the big fighters and so great and so on. And at the end, I learned humility again. It's always God's handwriting. Yeah. When I saw that all of my other Catholic friends all around Austria, every one of them had own secret communities, own secret Mass, and so on going on. So yes, it's a huge movement already. The problem is just that many people are not strong enough to hand the psychological pressure which is put upon them. So that's one of our main aspects.
We'll
have
to leave it there. I'm sorry, we're out of time. Alexander Schugguel, Boniface Institute. It's boniface-institute.com. Thank you, Alexander, for your time today. God love you. God bless you. Have a great day.